More than 50,000 people arrived at Hillsborough Stadium that afternoon. They came for a football match, a semi-final, a familiar fixture in a familiar place. Nothing about the day suggested it would be remembered for anything else. For most of them, this was routine. They had been here before. They expected crowds, delays, noise. They did not expect danger. The match was scheduled for 3 p.m. By early afternoon, congestion had begun forming outside the stadium. Thousands of supporters were being directed toward a limited number of turnstiles behind one end of the ground. Those turnstiles led to standing terraces. The terraces were enclosed by high steel fencing. The fencing was installed for control, to keep people off the pitch. It was not designed for escape. At 2:52 p.m., pressure outside the stadium increased. A decision was made to relieve it. An exit gate was opened. Supporters began to pour in. There were no instructions, no clear direction, no officers positioned to control where people went next. Most simply followed the crowd in front of them. They moved forward. They entered the two central pens, areas already close to capacity. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then the space began to close. By 2:57 p.m., people at the front were pressed against the fencing. Some tried to climb. Others lost their footing and fell. Those behind them couldn't see what was happening ahead. They only felt the pressure. At 3 p.m., the match began. From the control box above, police believed they were dealing with disorder. They assumed supporters were pushing forward deliberately. They did not recognize what was actually happening. Inside the pens, people could no longer move their arms. Breathing became difficult. Some lost consciousness while still standing. Supporters began lifting the injured overhead, passing them toward the front, toward the only open space they could see. At 3:04 p.m., the match was finally stopped. By then, many were already critically injured. The emergency response inside the stadium was confused and delayed. Ambulances struggled to reach the scene. First aid was improvised. Advertising boards were torn free and used as stretchers. Victims were laid out on the pitch in rows. Some were still alive. Later, investigations would determine that faster recognition and a faster response could have saved lives. In the years that followed, official accounts blamed the supporters. Claims of drunkenness and misconduct. They were repeated in headlines and accepted as fact. Families were told their loved ones were responsible for their own deaths. It took decades for that narrative to be dismantled. Independent investigations later concluded that the disaster was caused by mismanagement, that opening the gate without control led directly to the crush, that failures in emergency response contributed to the loss of life, that the victims bore no responsibility. In 2016, a jury returned verdicts of unlawful killing. By then, many parents had spent more than half their lives fighting to clear their children's names. But the most unsettling detail isn't the number. It's the place. Hillsborough Stadium was built for crowds, staffed for crowds, trusted with crowds. The people who died that day were exactly where they were meant to be. They had tickets. They followed instructions. The stadium did what it was built to do. It held the crowd. 97 of them never left.